right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I am going to give you 10 points that you can apply immediately as it relates to lead follow-up. Okay, so let's write down lead follow-up. The first thing that I want us to look at and I want us to accept is that most of your sales listings are going to come as a result of lead follow-up. Most. Just take a minute and think about the sales that you've made so far this year. How many of those sales were a first-time contact? Just talked to them once, got an appointment, went out and sold them a house, took a listing. I bet you that hasn't happened a whole lot. Most of your business is coming as a result of lead follow-up. So because of that, it's extremely important that we learn to do it right. Okay, we're in a marketplace right now, guys, where there's not a whole lot of business that's just falling in our lap. We've got to learn how to dot the I's, cross the T's, so that we are doing things the right way. All right, so the first point, most of your business is going to come as a result of lead follow-up. Okay, point number 2, we have got to get better. And I just literally talked with my team about this today, guys. We've got to get better at creating urgency. Okay, giving them a reason to take action right now instead of waiting until later. Would you agree with me, guys? Most people are somewhat indecisive. Is that a fair statement? Mm-hmm. I think most people are pretty indecisive. Okay, and so it's easy. It is, let me say this, it is likely that they're going to tend to put off decisions. So we have to get to the point where we don't accept a no or a brush off quite so easily. So if, let's just say that it is a lead that has been generated for you, maybe it's a Google lead or realtor.com or Zillow, whatever. It's a lead that's been generated. The first thing I want you to think about is, how did that lead get in front of you to begin with? These people did something to initiate taking action. Now, why would they do that if they didn't at least have some degree of interest? So it's normal that they could get a little bit nervous and hesitant about moving forward, making a decision. So we've got to be working on what I'm going to call our story. Our story. So it's a, what is the reason why people should take action right now? Now I'm going to tell you what my team is working on. Our story is this. Right now, we're dealing with an inventory that is shrinking. Okay, I bet you all of you can say the same thing. And we're also dealing with a huge buyer demand. So we've got multiple offers on most of the houses that we're selling. We're dealing with multiple offers. Now listen, Economics 101 will tell you, when you have a short inventory and a huge demand, what's going to happen to prices? I don't care what the media says, low supply, high demand is going to drive up prices. So even though, yes, interest rates are up a little bit right now, the story that we are telling over and over and over again every day to create urgency is, why would you wait? 6 months from now, a year from now, you're going to be paying more for the same house than you'd be paying today, with no guarantee that the interest rates are going to come down. They probably will. And if they do, refinance. There's a lot of lenders out there right now. My daughter and son-in-law are our lender. And they've got a program right now that if you refinance with them, that they will waive the cost of the refinance. So you take an interest rate right now that's maybe a 7% rate, and it drops down to 5%, and you decide to refinance, they'll waive the cost. And they're probably not the only ones in the country that are doing this. So we have got to be prepared to tell that story over and over again to create urgency. Now, here's a couple other reasons. Okay, maybe they're concerned that they can't qualify. Sometimes people just make assumptions about their credit or about their job history. And we can't solve that problem unless they bring out that question. So we need to make sure that we're good at asking probing questions to find out, why are they hesitating? So if they say they want to put things off, what's wrong with just saying, would you mind if I asked why you'd rather wait versus taking advantage of the opportunities right now?
It's no different.
And allow them to voice their concerns. It may be something that's easily overcome. People create their own reality. There's all sorts of experts out there in the world on real estate that are giving advice that don't know what in the world they're talking about.
Mhm.
So if you can pull out their objections, you might find, hey, they may say, you know what? I don't have enough cash to buy a house right now. Well, that's an easy problem to overcome. We've got programs out there that'll cover their down payment for them. So find out what it is that's causing them to hesitate, and then be prepared to overcome that. In other words, guys, don't accept a no so easily. One of the philosophies that I've always followed is I never stop on the first no. Never stop on the first no.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. We got to keep digging. We've got to keep digging. We got to keep digging to find out what's the real reason. What's the motivation? What's holding him back? Let's work on creating urgency. So practice your story. What is the story that you're going to be telling to create urgency? Number 3, we must control our lead pipeline. What do I mean by that? Most of us on this call are working with CRMs, where leads are being fed in to the CRMs. And then there are pipelines or ways that you organize your leads. This is an area that's easy to get lax on, especially if you're not by nature detail oriented. Okay, it's easy to get lax. And when you get lax on how you're managing your lead pipeline, then you become very inefficient. So for example, my team uses a CRM called Chime, and we have different pipelines within Chime. We have the first pipeline is new lead. When a lead hits the system, it goes into the new lead pipeline. I tell them to leave that lead there for no more than 24 to 48 hours max. Now, during that time, you're contacting them multiple times through phone, through text, through email, trying your best to reach those people. Then they're going to go to the second pipeline that we call attempting contact. Okay, again, they're newer leads, and we've just advanced them through the pipeline. They're going to stay in that attempting contact for 4 to 5 days max, where again, you're going to aggressively try to get a hold of them. Hopefully, during this time, you've been able to reach them and either get an appointment set or determine that they're a good lead that you want to hang on to, in which case you're going to file them in one of the other pipelines, which are the hot leads, 0 to 30, or 60 to 90, or 90 days plus, depends upon the pipeline. And then the final pipeline we have is called future. And our future bucket is just what it says. Somebody's going to do something in the future. Maybe we can't reach them at all during these several days that we're going after them. We've tried and tried and tried, can't reach them, put them in the future bucket. Or maybe there's somebody that says, listen, we're just getting online right now because we're redecorating our house and we're looking for some ideas on redecorating. Great. Don't get rid of them. Put them in the future bucket. Eventually, these people are going to come around and do something. We talked about that again at our team meeting today, how many sales we have made to people that initially had no interest in buying or selling. Excuse me. They were just more curiosity seekers. Maybe they talked about, what housing prices are looking like and what kind of house they would want to buy at some point, and they're dreaming online. Keep those people. It's so simple, and it doesn't cost a dime to just do, an occasional text and email just to keep up with them. And eventually, guess what? They pop up, bang, they're ready to go. So make sure that your leads are organized. Your leads are valuable. You ladies, I'm sure, have purses with your wallet in it. Men, we have our billfold in our back pocket, and any cash that we have is in that billfold. Why do we keep it in our billfold? Why don't we just have it scattered all over the place, like most people do with their leads? Because that cash is valuable. We need to know where it is. And when we need to lay our hands on it, we need to know where to go to lay our hands on that cash. That's the same thing with your leads, guys. Treat your leads with respect. Treat them as though they are valuable, because they are. More of your business is going to come from lead follow-up and first-time contact. Remember that. Next point. Don't ever keep leads based upon scarcity. Make your decisions based upon abundance. What do I mean by this? Okay, there are plenty of leads out there, guys. There are plenty of leads. So don't keep leads because you're afraid that you're not going to get something better. If they're not a good lead, if they don't qualify, and I'll talk more in a second about what a qualified lead looks like, but if they don't qualify, don't keep them out of fear that, well, what if they do something? What if I make a mistake? You know what? If you're doing your lead follow-up properly, you are going to throw away leads. You're going to throw away business because your decision-making is not going to be perfect. But if you're afraid to make a decision, you're afraid to throw somebody away on the off chance that they may do something, you're going to accumulate so many leads that you're going to be completely ineffective. Okay, the best salespeople on the planet throw away leads. Be decisive. You're going to be right most of the time. Are you ever going to make a mistake? Yeah, but don't focus on that. Because if you're afraid of making a mistake, you're just going to get cluttered. You're going to become totally, we called it today lead constipation. You're going to be all stopped up. It's a new term today, lead constipation. Damien, you can use that with your team today. Lead constipation. No, all right. Well, up to you. All right. Next one. When you're inconsistent with following your schedule, when you're inconsistent with your prospecting, this is then what leads to the desperation. Why do we keep those bad leads? Because we know that we can't count on ourselves to do what we need to do to create more good leads. Let me tell you guys, it is a great feeling when you can throw a lead away because you just know in your gut it's not going to be any good, and you've got that confidence that you can replace it with a great lead. That's a great feeling. So we keep bad leads because we don't trust ourselves to stay consistent. Don't be that guy. Point number 6. When you're desperate, you begin to keep leads because of the possible chance they may do something, which does 4 things, guys. And I want you to write this down. 4 things. Number 1, when you're keeping bad leads, you completely lose your motivation to call them. Because the fact is, you know in your heart of hearts that you've got a bunch of junk. So you're not motivated. You don't have that sense of urgency to get a hold of them. Secondly, it kills your positive expectations that you should have. Part of what helps you to convert these leads into appointments is you're going into the call, you're going into this contact with that expectation that it's going to result in an appointment. Our expectations tend to determine our outcomes. If you're expecting to not get anything, then you're probably not going to be disappointed. When you're making your calls, when you're doing your follow-up, your expectations should always be high, should always be positive. You should know that you're making good decisions, so the leads that you're following up on are good leads that have a high chance of setting an appointment with you. Thirdly, you're not as aggressive. You're not as aggressive. Again, when you know that they're bad leads, you're not as aggressive. You might try them once and then forget about it. No, you need to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. Different times of the day. You know, try them in the evening after 6. Try them on Saturday morning. Try them on Sunday afternoon. Stay after them. Be aggressive. And then finally, a few good leads are buried. They're hidden. It's kind of like having a stack of cards, of playing cards, and trying to find the aces. There's 4 aces in the middle of 52 cards. How do you find them? You got to thumb through all 52 cards. That's the same thing with your leads. When you're keeping a bunch of bad leads, here's a point, guys, that I want you to think about. I have coached some of the top agents in the country. I'm talking about people making serious 7-figure incomes. So if I was to bring on right now somebody who's doing 200 transactions a year, and I asked this person, how many leads are you working at this moment? They're probably going to give me an answer somewhere in the 10 to 12 range. Probably 10 to 12 leads if somebody's doing around 200 transactions a year. And you might think, oh my God, how can they do 200 transactions a year and that's all that they've got? Because of the quality of the leads. They're keeping great leads. And so their conversion rate is really high, and they have the trust and confidence in themselves that they can create new great leads every day, every day, every day, every day. So they don't have a problem throwing away leads because they're just keeping the cream of the crop. That's how they do that volume of business. Let's look at the next point. Number 7, be sure that you're qualifying your leads properly, both buyer and seller. They all need to meet these 3 standards. So write these 3 standards down, guys. Buyers and sellers. What is their motivation? They must be motivated. They must be motivated. What do I mean by motivated? I mean, they're ready to make a decision now. Your buyer is ready to buy now if they find the right house. Your seller is ready to sell now. They're motivated. Remember, guys, motivation and cooperation go together. The more motivated somebody is, the more cooperative they're going to be. The less cooperative they are is a hint that they're probably not as motivated as you'd like for them to be. So number 1, they've got to be motivated. Number 2, they have to have the ability. If they're a buyer, they have to either be pre-qualified or have cash and have demonstrated proof that they have that cash. Or if they're a seller, they have to have the ability to sell. They have to have equity in the home. It can't be a home that's tied up in probate right now or whatever the circumstance. They have to be in a position where they have the ability to sell the home. And finally, the third qualification that we're looking at is, are their expectations realistic? Are their expectations realistic? A buyer has got to be willing to pay the price that's going to be required to get the home that they want. This is not a market right now for bargain hunters. So are they realistic? Is the seller realistic? Even in a market like this, you can overprice a listing. So are they realistic? Are they willing to price it where it needs to be priced to sell? Are they willing to pay the price they need to pay to get the home that meets their criteria? If they are, if they meet those 3 standards, then they're qualified. If they don't, move on to the next one. Next point. Remember, every follow-up call is a qualifying call. Let me say it again. Every follow-up call is a qualifying call. Your time is your most valuable asset. You have to determine where you're going to spend your time and with whom you're going to spend your time. Again, going back to some of these top performers that I've coached over the years, most of your high income earners are not working crazy hours and a crazy number of days. I'd say the average person that I've coached over the years that's doing 150 or more transactions a year is probably working at the most 5 days a week or less. Now, how are they able to do that? Because again, they're keeping the right leads. They're qualifying them. They're spending time with the right people. So again, every lead is going to have one of 3 outcomes. Number 1, we're either setting an appointment with them. That's the ultimate goal. Set a qualified appointment. Or as a result of your conversation with them, You're determining whether they are still a good lead to hang on to, and then when you are going to follow up with them next. And that's one of our rules, by the way, guys, on lead follow-up. You always make, if you're going to keep them as a lead, you have to make a decision right then and there when you're going to do your next follow-up call and get it scheduled immediately. Don't be indecisive here. When you're in the middle of this call or you've just completed this call, you have the most information right now. This is the best time to make a decision. Don't be indecisive. Remember this on lead follow-up, guys. If you're going to make a mistake, err on the side of being too aggressive. Call them too soon. Because here's the thing that we know, people who are motivated, they don't mind. The motivated ones don't mind. It's the ones who aren't motivated that mind. Again, coming back to motivation and cooperation going together. Okay, so make a decision right then and there. When am I going to follow up on this person again? And err on the side of being too aggressive. Or the third option is throw them in the trash can. Get rid of them. Don't let that be a holdup for you guys. Okay, so 3 outcomes: set an appointment, file them away for the next call, or throw them in the trash can. Next point. Be sure that you're making really good notes when you're on the phone with them. Make sure you're making really good notes. I happen to be the world's worst typist. I don't know why. There's a disconnect between my head and my hands. I don't know what it is. I watch my wife and she can talk and her hands are flying like this, and I don't get it. It just doesn't work for me. So when I'm making my notes, here's the way that I make my notes. The first thing on my notes is, who did I speak with, the man or the woman? So I either put MR or MRS. Doesn't matter whether she's married or not. That's my abbreviation. MR, MRS. So that reminds me, I spoke to the man or I spoke to the woman. Second thing that's on my notes is their motivation. And I'm going to abbreviate it because I'm the only one that needs to interpret it. So I'm not writing these notes for someone else to read. They're for me to read. So I'm going to abbreviate my notes as to what their motivation is. And then finally, I'm going to add any other little details that I think may be pertinent. Most of the stuff that you discuss doesn't matter. Who'd you speak with? Because it could be that you spoke to the wife one time, next time you call, the husband answers and you get all screwed up and he doesn't remember your conversation because you didn't talk to him. So male or female, who'd you talk with? What's their motivation? Then any other little details. Maybe they're moving to St. Louis. Who in the world would move to St. Louis? I don't think about it. Just seeing if you're paying attention. So, so maybe they're moving to St. Louis and they need to be there, by the 1st of September. Then it's going to say St. Louis job September 1. That's all I'm going to put down there. I can look at that, and the next time that I follow up, make that follow-up call, then I'm not feeling awkward, like, oh man, what did I talk with him about? What did we say? And most of us on this call are probably not real excited about feeling awkward. And so if we're not making really good notes, that could be all that we need to not try to make that follow-up call again. So you want to have good notes so that when you call them back, you can pick right up where you left off. Okay, so keep really good notes. Okay, and then finally, and I've stated this point before, so finally, before we open up for any questions, again, I said, make the decision immediately when to follow up with them again. Don't be indecisive. Okay, so those are 10 points that the top producers in the country follow to sell what they sell. Appreciate you guys being here. I hope at least you took one good idea away that's going to make you some money today. Thank you so much for being a part of Watson Powers Coaching. Have a fantastic day.